Hello everyone, DarkOfAllTrades here. I'm having a lot of fun making response videos addressing the misconceptions or plain falsehoods put forth by people who don't understand the average atheist position, but today I want to jump back into what I'm good at, and that is answering questions. So I found this video by a channel called The Jesus Renaissance.
The Renaissance, French for rebirth, Renaissance. And that's why most of the Renaissance period happened slap bang in Italy.
Titled 4 Questions to Ask an Atheist. Well, I'm an atheist and I love answering questions, so bring on the questions.
Number 1, where does objective morality come from, or does it exist at all?
This question is a pretty common one throughout apologetics. It seems that theists, specifically those that believe that they get their morality from their deity, seem to think that because they get their morality from their deity, that morality cannot come from other sources. Even if this were the case, their morality is no more objective than morality not from a deity. Objective morality comes from the subjective goal. In my case, it is the well-being of sentient creatures. Once we've established a goal, we can make objective assessments to determine what is moral and what is not moral. How do we do that? We make evaluations based on the facts of reality. If I murder you in cold blood, does that generally increase or decrease well-being? One would be hard-pressed to say that it doesn't decrease well-being. So we would call that action immoral. If I volunteer to help feed the homeless, we can say that that action increases well-being in a general sense, thereby making it a moral action.
If we're just all cells that have evolved over millions and millions of years, then what's the point? What's the purpose? Is there purpose at all?
Why would how humans came to be how we are change anything about morality? The facts of reality are that we care about well-being. Our ancestors cared about well-being. Those that typically didn't live long enough to pass down their genetic material. And now humans, as a social species, care about the well-being of their species. So, even granting your premise here, it is specifically because we are cells that evolved over millions and millions of years that we care about well-being. The point is survival and fitting into the environment. I am always baffled that people keep asking this question.
Where is the ultimate moral law coming from? If it doesn't come from God, where does it come from?
If we take my position on well-being as the standard, then, as I said, it comes from the objective facts of reality. Actions have consequences, whether good or bad. We take these evaluations and call the ones that generally increase well-being good and the ones that generally decrease well-being bad.
Does it come from the universe? Does it come from our own thinking? Is it all subjective? Is there no law? And if that is the case, then why do we obey our worldly laws? What's the point of not murdering or not stealing? What's the point of that? And so these are questions that have to be answered.
Well, another one of these, huh? This is a textbook equivocation fallacy. The term law in moral laws and worldly laws mean different things. In moral law, the term is descriptive. It describes what is moral and what isn't. They are determined by observation, analysis, and discovery. In worldly law, the term law is prescriptive. It is a dictate put forth by a governing body. We follow worldly laws because if we don't, we get put in jail. We follow moral laws because we can't help it. That instinct has been passed down from our ancestors, including our parents. We learn that if we don't, we are less likely to pass on our genetic material. People generally don't wish to mate with people that only care about themselves.
Question number 2, how do we get energy out of non-energy?
I'm not sure what you mean by this question. Who said anything about there being non-energy? What exactly is non-energy? I'll bet this has something to do with some weird first cause argument. Let's see if he clarifies.
We hear scientists talk a lot about the Big Bang and how the Big Bang kind of started forth in motion everything in the universe. But where did this original matter come from? Where did this original energy come from?
Short answer, we don't know. We cannot investigate beyond the Planck time. Basically, just after the Big Bang happened. The science behind this gets really intense and frankly not terribly exciting for most people who don't study this subject for years, but there are several hypotheses. We know that our local presentation of time began at the instantiation of the Big Bang, so it could be nonsensical to ask about before the Big Bang.
Where does this come from? We believe it's God as Christians, and even the people of other faiths, they believe it's God, that God is the originator, God's eternal, that he began all of this.
So what you're saying here is that your God can be eternal, but matter and energy must come from somewhere? This is a fallacy called special pleading. You are requiring justification for the universe, but not for your God. Why does your God get a free pass? Perhaps the existence of energy is the default state. There's no need for a God because something always existed. Nothing cannot exist, so there must be something.
The third question I'd ask is, where does transcendent emotion come from? Now, this is a more of a subjective question, but think about ideas like love and hate and joy. Where do these emotions come from? Do they play some sort of social utility? Is that the reason why we have love and why we have hate and why we have joy and some other emotions like frustration? Where do these things come from?
According to the American Psychological Association, emotion is defined as a complex reaction pattern involving experimental, behavioral, and physiological elements. So in simple terms, emotions come from the brain doing brain things.
Oftentimes you'll find that your atheist friend, they have people they love. They love their mom, they love their husband, they love their wife, whatever it is. They love these people. Why do they love them? And oftentimes the answer you'll get is, well, it's social utility. See, if I didn't love my spouse, then I couldn't pass off my genetic offspring, and so on and so forth. But I'd ask, why do we love other things? Why do we love people that have passed away? And there's no social utility in loving someone who's dead.
We love people that have passed away because they are still people that we knew, even if they aren't moving around and creating more memories with us. The physical state of a person does not affect our feelings toward them. You do not choose how you feel about someone. So even if I grant that there is no social utility to loving someone who is dead, the fact that they have changed state doesn't change our memories of them. This argument would be akin to a problem with object permanence. If they aren't around, why would you love them? We don't stop loving people after they've died because they've made an impact on our lives. Their memories stick with us. We learn something from them and take that knowledge and pass it on to the next generation. And because of that, our species gets a little bit better.
What's the social utility in really loving pizza or loving ballet? What's the social utility in that?
What are you talking about? Are you really asking why humans have a personal taste preference? Okay. Well, according to Linda Bartoshuk, professor of food science and human nutrition at the University of Florida and director for the psychophysical research at the university's Center for Smell and Taste, quote, taste is both biology and experience, and it's psychological because of the learning that we do. We learn to like things. Some of our liking or disliking is built into the brain, but most of it is learned, end quote. I feel like a simple Google search for why do we like the foods we like would answer this question.
Lastly, and I get a little more personal with this question, if there is no God, does your life have meaning? I just posed that. Does your life have meaning?
Yes, though meaning is not an intrinsic property. Meaning is imbued onto things by thinking agents. If there are no thinking agents, then there is no meaning. I'm a thinking agent, therefore I can give objects meaning. Of course, another thinking agent can give that same object a different meaning than what I give it. If I have a photograph of my dog, it will have a different meaning to me than it will to a stranger. Of course, my dog is super adorable, but the meaning of that picture to me will be different than the meaning of that to a random person. They may not care much if the picture gets lost forever, but it will likely have a greater impact on me.
So is there things you're passionate about? Are there loves like art or science, things that you really, really care about? Are there acts of charity or passion projects that you're involved with? And if so, why?
Of course there are things I'm passionate about. I care about a lot of things. I am a human, and it is human nature to care about things other than oneself. As I said before, humans are social animals. We understand that helping others tends to help us. If the entire group is doing well and we are part of the group, that means we are doing well. Humans also have gotten to the point where we can have passions. We don't have to keep focusing on where we are going to sleep or where our next meal is going to come from. We can put energy into other areas to develop new skills and grow as people.
Ultimately, if we're the atheists, we should believe in Charles Darwin's theory and that the survival of the fittest, right? The stronger eat the weak. What's wrong with that?
Another theist that misrepresents the idea of survival of the fittest. It isn't that the strong eat the weak. What do you think the term fit means here? The fittest are just the species that best fit into their environment. An Arctic hare fits into the environment of the Arctic better than a wild hare. Why? Because their coats are white, so it blends in better, allowing the Arctic hare to hide from predators better and therefore pass on its genes. We know this is the case, so why do you need to try to make it something that it isn't?
What's wrong with great countries destroying and ransacking smaller countries? What's wrong with that?
Doing this would decrease the well-being of people in those smaller countries. If we live in a world where this is okay, then people in those smaller countries don't survive. One day, that great country will be smaller than another country, so it will get destroyed and ransacked. Do you want to live in a world where that is okay? No. Why? because it decreases well-being.
What's wrong with husbands beating their weak wives? What's wrong with that?
The exact same concept. We use empathy for this and say, if it were me, would I be okay with this happening? If no, then we evaluate why. Why would it not be okay for me to beat someone smaller than I am? It is because it would decrease overall well-being. Even if I wanted to take it from a purely selfish standpoint, I don't want someone stronger than me to be able to beat me, so I don't beat someone weaker than me. So I don't live in a society where it's okay to beat someone weaker simply because you're stronger.
You know, sometimes atheists or agnostics, they're just really angry at the idea of God or God himself.
No, this just doesn't happen. A person cannot be angry at something that they do not believe exists. If someone believes that a god did something to them to anger them, then they believe that God exists. So they cannot be atheist or agnostic by definition. If an atheist or agnostic is angry at the idea of a god, it would not be the idea itself, but the actions that people take because of it. If you try to take your god and make laws based on what you think your god wants, then I have every right to get angry and push back. What am I pushing back against? I'm pushing against you taking those actions. I don't have to think your god is real to do this. That's all the questions he had in this video. I was really hoping that this would just be a questions video, maybe with some guidance for people asking the questions, but it went off the rails at the end there. So what did you think? Do you agree with my answers? Do you think I was way off on something? How would you have answered differently? Let me know in the comments. I love to see how people think on topics like these. As per usual, if you like this kind of content, use those cells that have evolved over millions and millions of years to hit that like button. And if you like this half as much as you like pizza, hit that subscribe button and you can love this content even after it dies. As always, no matter what your personal taste is, keep learning.